Welcome to the next episode of the Teacher Zone with Chris and Tyler. I'm Tyler Maroff, and today Chris and I are going to go over part 4 in the Transformation Quadrant. And Chris, what's part 4 on?
Well, part 4 is transform. So the Transformation Quadrant culminates in this item. So for those of you that have been seeing the webinar, if you haven't, go to our website, teacherzone.com. You can watch the Transformation Formula webinar that we have and do. That really is a comprehensive guide to everything for anybody that teaches, whether you're doing privates or groups. Tyler and we basically talked to some of the biggest lesson business owners globally over the last 5-6 years. And we kind of created this formula off of all of our learning from all y'all. And so basically what it is the 4 steps are attract, convert, deliver, and transform. And so the other podcasts in this series, this is part 404. They went through the other 3. So today we're all about transform. And, Tyler, for a second here, as we get into this, why don't you talk for a second about transform? I'm so proud of what you and I do and what all of you listening do, because we're changing lives.
Right. So transform is absolutely directly related to our why, which you guys have heard us talk about before. Sometimes, during the attract, convert, and deliver operations, we forget about that for a while, and that's why we're here. A lot of you are still in the wilderness, and you don't have to be anymore. I don't care if your business is 50 years old or 50 days old. Okay, that's why we're doing this. So our why and our transformation for the Teacher Zone even is a big deal. Like, we're trying to transform our community, but at the same time, at our local brick and mortar lesson academy, transformation has been a big part of our why too, because we want to give what we got. Sometime in our past, Chris and I had a musical experience, because ours is a music performance academy, that changed our lives forever. Whether it was listening to a tape or CD, whether it was a first jam like I had with the Cardoza brothers when I was 12, blew my mind, and I knew I would never, ever stop. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew I was not going to stop. Well, fast forward, Chris, now we have 14 other people that had the same experiences working with us for us at this same performance academy, that all had similar instances happen and want to make that impact as well. So that to me is the transform. Now we get into detail, obviously, and that I brought up the team, right? I just mentioned the people that make the world go round at Los Rios Rock School, our performance academy. That team is what we're talking about on this series. So the transformation whole quadrant is based on how do these teams work and how can they work, and can you and us apply them?
As a reminder for those of you listening, if you're in leadership, then essentially, leadership, especially if you're, the director or owner of the operation, your role is basically three things. It's where are we headed? So that's the vision, right? Do we have the right people in the boat? So that's the people, right? And then your job is to make sure you don't run out of money. So don't run out of money. Make sure you have a map and make sure you got the right talent. And with that, you can create an extraordinary, and most of you already have, but we want to continue to create an extraordinary impression and transformation in our students.
Chris, let's face it. We made an extraordinary, one of the best performance academies in the country. And we feel like we're just getting, after 12 years, to chapter 2. We believe it's not anywhere where it actually can be. It's close, but we don't. It's not there.
Most of you listening, you're in the lesson or class business because you're really, really good at something, or you're really smart at something. So if you have a language school, you're really good at languages. If you have a martial arts or dance or music, you're really good at that, right? And so you basically took that talent, and then typically that's how most entrepreneurs start. You're like better than a lot of folks, and you have some ambition, and you decide that you want to make an impact and start to do your thing.
Right.
And
And then you figured out a little twist to what the status quo is. And you're like, I don't like the status quo. That's what happened. That's what I did.
I know, right.
And
You
I'm
want
like,
to fix the
I think
problem.
all of that kind of like, and entrepreneurs can be very passionate.
Yeah.
I was so passionate and younger that I was like, and I'm friends with a lot of these people now, by the way, but I was like, this Studio X, School A, whatever, they suck if that's all they're bringing to the table. Now, that's not very compassionate of me, but it was a fire nonetheless. And I said, okay, how can I solve it differently? And that's that entrepreneur journey.
That's what a business does. A business solves a challenge, right? And so you have to solve a challenge that people actually want solved. And typically you only know what people want solved if you're talented or been around it enough. You know, the whole reason Tyler and I, we were friends for a very long time, but we were attracted to one another also because we had similar backgrounds, similar talents, similar things. We tend to attract those that think and are a lot like us.
That was even way before you even had that mustache, which is so attractive.
Well, I'm follically challenged, the best I can do, but
it's great. It's great, especially when you're drinking espresso. It's amazing, yeah. Even from 2,200 miles away. So anyway, sorry, I digress. I don't want to throw Chris off his track. Where were you going with that?
Where I'm headed with it is that you said we're just getting started, and for a lot of you that have been around a long time, you're always kind of just getting started. And if you're talented at anything, which almost all of you listening are, you know how that works. The more talented, I started playing drums at 5 years old. This is my first band at 12 years old. I thought I was really, really good at like 15. Now, many, many years later, I actually consider myself a beginner because the better you get, the more you know what you don't know, the more you start to see the big picture of things. So this transformation process, what I'm trying to get at, is never done. This is something that it's the whole fun of the game.
And today we're going to break down on how that transformation philosophy trickles into different facets of a business. So the teams that run a couple, and we're going to go over, 3 different topics today to cover the transformation part of the quadrant. But what Chris just described from his 5-year-old self to his 15-year-old, I've arrived Jedi drummer self, then enlightened later, like, wow, there's always more. That is also the same philosophy you can sprinkle into your students, families, parents, staff, leaders, directors, operations, anybody, your neighbors that are near your facility. Like, this is what people are missing sometimes because they're wrapped up in the stress and the burdens of not having systems.
Well, it's a lot. You're right. The lack of systems, and it's also, Tyler, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's a lottery mindset. A lot of us are taught for some reason that if we hit this certain finish line, we'll be done. That's why I thought I was a really good player when I was my teenager, because I thought, oh, I hit this milestone, I'm done. And then you realize, oh, there's no finish line. Well, that suddenly makes it infinite. So where you and I are at our school right now, compared to some operations, we're having some great success. Compared to our own ambitions, we're literally in kindergarten, just getting started, because we know that we can make a bigger impact and a bigger difference. So hopefully you're excited about making a difference. Let's talk about transformation. So Tyler, the first thing we talk about is with the 3 elements. We'll just say that, and then let's get into each one. Learning and assignments, community engagement, and progress tracking and reward system. Those are the 3 ways to transform in the class and lesson business. Learning and assignments, community engagement, progress tracking, and reward system. Let's first start with learning and assignments. It's a big part of transforming the students that you have in your classes and lessons each week. So let's talk about the team for learning and assignments, Tyler. Go ahead.
Well, really, depending on your school and what type of lesson business you have, if you don't have something with some continuity, which all of this is linked together, that leads to, can we measure what's happening? Are there reasons and goals to want to get further and not quit. Like all this, you're going to notice this could be one topic, but we split it into three. So right now, assignments, like weekly assignments, is there a consistent flow of information case by case? We understand all students are different. We don't, at Los Rios Rock School and Teacher Zone in general, we don't truly believe that linear academia is the only way to go.
Right.
Everything's changing. There's full high schools that are dedicated to project-based learning now compared to the Bolshevik style linear stuff we've all been used to. So therefore, if the weekly assignments, what they need to be is consistent.
Right. That's such a great point. That's such a great point, because this idea that everybody should learn the same thing, we all know that is not the most effective, especially in the private lesson in class business. We understand that, you can take someone that's excelling and keep pushing them so much farther, right? Everybody's at a different level, if you will, especially with privates.
There's another way to look at it too. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you show up to Jiu-Jitsu, you're over a 4-day period in a week, no matter what level you're at, you're learning a sequence of different moves. And you might suck at 2 of them. Like, it's just not making sense, but you submit a guy with the 3rd and the 4th one. Like, it's your thing. So even in that atmosphere, it's really custom to each person and the professors at those studios. And if you're listening, hello, they watch, but everybody, then you go back and you refine the weaknesses. There's always a way to do it. So the bottom line is this: your assignments, your weekly assignments, something should be dispensed consistently so that the people involved that are learning know what to expect, build a habit, and your school has a reputation of being productive.
And so, since we're talking about leadership, and leadership's about having teams, you build people and people build your business. What are the teams involved with learning and assignments? We've got
at our school. Well, we used to have a director of curriculum. He moved to Switzerland, and we had big plans for him. And after 5 years, he moved with his wife, who is Swiss, Dr. Haycraft. And so we have a little space to fill in an oversee position for curriculum enrichment and follow through. But right now, Chris, we currently have 126 lessons in Teacher Zone for the mandatory minimums for auditioning and moving into different parts of the program that all the teachers use in unison.
So the team members, just to keep on the team topic, basically you should have your administrators, directors, leadership team on the same page, which is what Tyler was just talking about with the 126. Those are our levels, our audition requirements, our ability to be able to gauge where you're at.
And assignments. We're going
to get into that. We're going to get into that. But what I wanted to reiterate here is that under your learning and assignments, it's imperative that your staff, which is obviously your teachers, have great direction from leadership, so they know what's expected of them. Which means, because I know we see you guys every day, and there's just like some teachers are really good about it, some teachers are lazy, some teachers just don't. And so it's very important that you have a standard with your lesson in class program where you tell your teachers what is your mandatory minimum that you're going to require for learning and assignments each week. And then with that,
does your operations have a way to monitor those standards as well? Because do we have checks and balances? We already have employee agreements that state, hey, this is what's expected of you. This is how consistent we like to be at Los Rios. But is it all in unison together? And is it being monitored? Is it happening? So those are really key too.
Yeah, because having key KPIs, key performance indicators, having things that you're measuring, it helps you grow. As we know, you can't grow what you don't measure. But a lot of us, we give a lot of orders. We talk about transformational versus transactional leadership. We tend to give a lot of orders and then not have systems in place to follow up. So getting ways to measure. And so, lastly, on the learning and assignments, one of the things that we also do with regard to measurement is the quarterly is the review, where we've got students getting reviewed all the time. We also do what Tyler said, where you can have evergreen courses and assignments, so teachers can just keep assigning from your curriculum. But the bottom line with this is make sure your team, you even have the parents involved. So the team in this one is your leadership team, which would be directors and the like. Teachers are the most important aspect of the learning assignments because they're the ones day to day adhering to the expectations of your program. And then lastly, parents. You need, if you've got underage students, you need help to make sure those assignments and things are actually getting viewed and looked at. So make sure you have a way to engage the families. One of the ways we do that is we teach upon the first lesson, we actually teach the students how to use the apps, how to view the assignments, that kind of things. And we make sure that the families also have videos and things we send the families, letting them know how to do that. So it's real important to do. So
yep, and it's Tyler, easy. Any way you can reduce friction on those assignments, quarterly goal updates, and using some sort of evergreen multimedia, something that there's continuity to. If you have a way to get that to everybody and there's less friction, the more you do it and the better you get at it, everyone, the parents and families are transforming, not only the teachers and the students. So that team framework is very important. And you're right, Chris, that does lead us to more engagement and the community aspect. Why don't you touch on that?
So if you start with learning and assignments, in the Transform, we did 3 parts to it. We did learning assignments, then we did community engagement, and then we did the progress tracking and reward system. Bottom line is that this piece, the community and engagement aspect, is big in transformation. You guys, it has been proven. And in the webinar, we talk about that, what is it, Change or Die book. It's actually been proven over and over again that humans do not change without peer pressure. They just don't. Humans need peer pressure. So it's important that you create a community in your lesson program for several reasons. One, we tend to stay longer when we feel like we belong. So by creating a community, you're actually increasing your retention dramatically. We also get more referrals to places we feel like we belong, right?
Right.
And then lastly, we actually learn more and change our behavior more when we feel like we're doing it for people that think how we think, or at least believe. They say if you want to change your habits or change your behaviors or learn a new skill, the first thing you should do is go hang out with people that already do that.
Because you are who you hang out with, as many of our grandparents told us, and that is absolutely true. So the way we break this down, our team for the community and engagement part of this little talk, of this part of the quadrant. So we've got our directors that are working with group projects and overseeing multiple students as a whole in groups. But then we also have our admins, our administrators and operations team that make sure all the parents on the financial side and the expectations and the event side that are coming up are all in the know. And so there's a very important
communications, right? Like
communications director, he has to sit back. Chris and I can't do this. He has to be able to sit back and look at what would he want to know is coming if he was a parent that cared a lot about that kid growing up. And guess what? Spencer has no kids. He is a kid. He's 24 still, but he still needs to learn empathetically how to think like them and as the standards creators, us, the founders, without Chris and I doing it for him. So that communications person, whether it's group events coming up, whether it's, ask your ambassadors if your kid isn't feeling connected. We'll get to that in a second. Have them connect with the person with the ambassador badge. They will help them. Like, someone on this engagement team has to oversee the whole thermometer and know how to sprinkle the systems down.
And we kind of, Tyler and I, when we talked about the engagement part with the community engagement, we realized that pretty much your entire operation is involved in this aspect. Because this is the part, when you're trying to build a community, it takes a tribe and it takes everybody to be on the same page. Again, I'm going to reiterate, our job as leaders is to simply impart the vision over and over and over. If you notice the Steve Jobs and the Elon Musk of the world, that's really all they do is impart vision.
My job, Chris, and my job is to not make sure our parents remember there is a big get together or giant meeting or something. That's exciting, even though it's really cool. And we used to do that. It's not scalable. In order for us to make this vision come true, we can't do that.
Right. We simply provide the vision and then help the team. Every person has a certain aspect. So our communications director is an important part of this, but a big part of community engagement is your teachers. So it's important that you train your staff, including us. Tyler and I were just talking about we need to do better. Even though, our performance program is kind of like what Tyler alluded to, is that if you go back 12 years ago, when Tyler first started out of his house, and then he and I started like dreaming about what it could be, and then you take where we're at today, we kind of feel like we just got started. So now the fun really, now that we have a nice program that has a lot of the attributes we wanted, and we've reinvested back in the business a lot. What's neat for a lot of us out there, and a lot of you listening, isn't it kind of cool? A lot of us are at that place right now where it's like, okay, now we've got this great base that we can just continue to grow from. And so a big part of that is getting your teachers to all be on the same page about creating that tribe. And one of the ways we do that is through social. We don't use social media because that's too dangerous with kids. But like in Teacher Zone, we actually have a social chat. So we actually let our teachers, Tyler actually loves creating subgroups and different chats for, like a guitar shredder group or different things,
or a teacher's roster. My big thing is that if 20 students all think that this teacher's one of the most amazing people they've ever met, and those 20 students don't know who each other are, that's sacrilege.
Right.
So therefore, one of the ways we do things is we have a roster chat for each teacher. And once a week or whatever, the first chat says, hey guys, this is a place where all of my students are, not the other 160. This is where my students are, where we can talk music, share links, have fun talking, whether the teacher's talking or not. And only the teachers can create those or hires.
And that's the thing that you actually turned me on, Tyler, years and years ago, watching you with your first students. You really turned me on to this fact that sometimes just sitting around watching a video together is just as good as learning that skill that you're there to teach them, because that bonding, that connection, that feeling of being connected is actually where learning happens.
Well, that's the power of also a 1 hour lesson, which is a side note here. But a 1 hour lesson technically is part of all this. It's a times any engagement you've ever done with a 30-minute lesson times it by 2.
Well, because you're able to actually become friends and not just have it be just rote. Here, let's work on these scales or whatever you're working on.
And do research skills. Like, hey, have you seen this? What have you been listening to? And connect. And then it causes new projects to form. Like music is very iterative. If you're in a music lesson business, you know this. The wind can blow with Spotify today. I think it's something, I looked it up. I think 60,000 or more songs are put into Spotify a day.
Yeah.
So therefore, talk about being, Chris loves the word iterative because things are constantly moving, growing, changing. So is their taste and what they want to do with their picture they have in their mind with music or whatever they're learning. And the teacher, if he can get a hold of that as that leader on that team, he can harness that inspiration and turn it into something that didn't even exist the day before.
Having constant conversations about all that. I mean, it's the same thing whether you're teaching athletics or the arts. It doesn't matter what you're teaching, or language, or because whatever it is you're teaching, there's so much that you can chat about. There's so much you can actually connect. So social chat, group events, and then we need to move on. The group events are things we've done, everything from movie nights to parents' night outs. Even we've had, it's important to get your families involved. We've had a lot of families host all of us at their home. That's fun too. And then lastly, ambassadors. Let's just talk 1 minute on that and then move on, or 2 minutes. The ambassador idea that Tyler and I have is we're really trying to start to implement the fact that our team members and our students need to be ambassadors for the whole program to each other.
So there's 2 aspects we were looking at, right, Chris? Number one is, yes, we need no kids no kids left behind, nobody falling through the cracks. Like that's how Chris and I can sleep at night, is when we know that we have 180 and we're shooting for 220, 230 1-hour students a week that are happy, right? Okay, so they need ambassadors. There's introverts, extroverts, jazz hands, shy kids that will never think that they'll tell us they'll never sing in front of anyone, and then we always prove them wrong. But like, how do we make them all feel welcome one-on-one and in the social environments that are a big part of our school, the jam clubs, the concert programs, the audiences, and all of that, so that they're equally considered an important part of the program, even though they're brand new? Well, that's messaging. We have to get the messaging back to the teenagers, remind them, do you remember when it was new? Oh yeah. If they don't know, they don't know to help. So the messaging to the troops of kids, veterans versus new kids, that's an ambassador part, right? And Chris had a great idea. And number 2 is staff ambassadors. We have new staff. We have 5 new staff members. Are they in sync with our standards, besides talking to Chris and I and their intake and training and whatever? Cool. Now we set them in the wild. Are they connected as good as they should be with the other team members? We have a staff meeting every month. Is that good enough? We're finding no, we need ambassadors there as well.
So just because we need to do a whole topic just on ambassador.
Yep.
I'm going to say 2 things to end the ambassador thing. Thank you, Ty. Number 1, the definition of ambassador is a person who acts as a representative or promoter of a specific activity. Stop being the only ambassador in your lesson or class program.
Preach.
That's the bottom line. A lot of you are the only ambassador in the program. You need to recruit your staff and your students to help, and your families. Everyone's an ambassador. You know that we've been paying staff members to handle the front door at our shows, and it dawned on us that the parents want to help. And do you know how much better it is to have parents up front helping? They're our ambassadors too.
Dude, our shows are 4.5 to 5 hours long, and the parents love doing 45-minute shifts. They love it. They get to meet other parents on the way in. And with such a big program, with big events, you can shoot right by ambassador principals. You can just like flies right by, like you're in a helicopter, and they're over there. They seem happy because the music's good. There's a lot that we can do better in between, and that's what we're working on, right, Chris?
Totally. So ambassadorships are a big part of it. So learning assignments, community engagement. Lastly, let's talk about the team for progress tracking and reward system. So again, we're going to go with the same team, Tyler. Basically, the entire staff on all these Transform ideas. I guess Transform really is like, it's a whole program. Like your entire school needs to be involved in Transform, is basically what we're saying. Right. Like in the other aspects, you'll have a marketing team, you'll have other team members that are focused. When it comes to Transform, it's all hands on deck. And so with that said, do you have a way to track progress? So if you're martial arts, think belt system, but is there a more subtle way to do that? Do you have a point?
Attendance as well. Attendance and consistency and retention is absolutely based on if a person has a habit building and if they're listening to the instructions, the prescribed success rate or success strategy of succeeding at said dojo, said music school, or whatever. And all you need is some sort of metric that you can look at and go, whoa, our prescribed is they need to show up. And with like dojos, sometimes you can go 3 nights a week. And if guys are coming once a week, but it's every week, that's actually not bad. It's consistent. 3 times a week, all the time, you don't get better, and you get better and they're hooked, retention, friends, and everything. But if you see someone coming once a week, every 2 weeks, and then every 3 weeks, and then they're going to be not a customer again soon, and they're not connected. And that's okay. Maybe it's not the right time, but you should find out.
So one of the reasons we think attendance is important for progress tracking is a lot of you don't do it, surprisingly. And attendance is an important part of making sure that you're transforming, and also making sure that you're healthy. Because if people aren't showing up, I'm sorry, but there's something wrong, something going on. Because if you're really creating an environment that people are excited to be a part of, they're going to show up. And if you're creating the ground rules, so attendance is a big one. We've actually found that for students that attend 70% of the time or less, that it's actually a red flag that they're probably going to leave you. So we highly recommend that you track that. We also highly recommend that you track no-shows for someone that says they were going to be there and then doesn't show up. It just shows that you care, number one, but it also it creates a respect. It's very disrespectful that someone would think they could just not show up.
Right. And some people, again, if somebody doesn't know they have a problem, then they don't know that they need to work on it. So somewhere along the line, someone snuck into the school where we have standards are set, and we're like, what in the heck? Did they just not get anything of what they were toured about? And the contract.
So we have to call, we have to call and remind them.
Yeah. So therefore, the attendance part, like Chris said, it can be disrespectful because the teacher's giving 120%. Well, it also makes the front end attract and convert sales side look like, who did we qualify for this? And the poor teacher that got that student. So if you don't have if you're not tracking attendance, and if you don't have a way to look at the ratios in your attendance tracking, so maybe you do have a spreadsheet of who was where. That sounds daunting to me. But we use Teacher Zone, obviously, because there's retention reports built in. So we not only do the teachers take attendance real time, and all sorts of things are attached to that, but Chris and our operations team and I can, with a flick of a wrist and a filter, look at a whole teacher's roster and see who's under 70% or not, look at a single student. Yep. And it's all right there. There's a lot of data to measure what's going on.
Grow what you measure. And so we've measured that if students are attending like half their lessons, what we found is a funny thing. It's usually because they have a flaky teacher. So if your teacher's flaking, they're teaching your students to flake. So
absolutely, we've already proven it. So if you don't believe us, we can pull the report from that period of time. And there was 2 teachers. They were friends. They were in the same band, and we pulled them, and it was less than 45 or less % attendance rate if you counted student canceled and teacher canceled.
Yeah, the students matched perfectly. It was crazy.
So the students matched those 2 birds of a feather, you guys. We had a tool to help with our transformation. When you have a couple people on a team that are causing that to happen, they don't fit the founder's standards of transformation. We make the founders, you make the standards. The teams can help with vision, but the standards are in place already.
Right, you have to hold your team accountable. You're letting your students.
Hey, Chris, tell them the good news. Tell them the good news. What happened when we posted that in Basecamp and showed everyone at once in a friendly, positive way of what happens? And hey, this is where we're at. Let's make sure we're here.
Change. And then the students started attending more too. So that the great news is that you can change it by tracking it. So the other things that we have to get lastly, because we're going long, and so I just don't want us to go too long today. Points and badges.
Hey, it's part 4, man. It's the end. It's gonna be okay. It's the end.
I know,
they got 20, 20, 20. Now they're getting 40, man.
Yeah, let's do this. Because Tyler and I love these topics. We could sit here for like, I listened to a Jocko podcast yesterday that was 4 hours long almost. I was like, oh my gosh, he got us beat. By
the way, Chris Bates must have really good systems in place to listen to a 4-hour podcast.
Yes, I was actually doing other things at the time, but you're right. So points and badges is one of the most important and neat ways that we actually just created. So in the last year, we in our system, we created a whole way to gamify your learning. So you can actually create all sorts of really cool point systems and badges. We just had our first contest too, didn't we, Ty?
Stop for a second. We have to give Chris credit where it's due. So because Chris is such a metrics hound and a stats monger, I made those sound negative, but they're good things, I promise, usually. He, with Teacher Zone's design from day one, with our practice timer, which was very rudimentary, but it let the kids see and the teachers see if they were above or below what was required that week. That was the basics, plus the attendance, plus the payroll reports, payment reports, everything in Teacher Zone as we coded it was constantly putting metric pools together, whether we were using them in reports or not. So now fast forward till we finally get to create something from all of the data that Chris was hounding and collecting and creating as we went. That led to points and badges. System automated points that teachers don't even have to do anything but take attendance. The kids are practicing at home and they get badges and points based on how you set it up. But also manual badges, special stuff, whether the school itself creates the ultimate badge where the kid just did whatever you want, and you can even design the badge, and teachers can assign those right in the attendance screen and add more points and bring the leaderboards that are viewed by all and adjust them, all because Chris was collecting metrics the whole time we've been coding.
Well,
so
yeah,
good job, buddy.
Well, thank you. But the big part about it for all of us is how can we make learning more fun?
Yep.
And when we get rewards, when we measure ourselves against someone else, it lets us know kind of where we stand. It's human nature. It's actually, you guys, if you're not giving your students the gift of sort of having fun with letting them know where they stand, it's not static. So we're not suggesting that you create some hierarchy in your program where the students feel like they're stuck, because that's not learning. Learning is feeling like, oh, wow, this month I'm doing really good. So what's really fun about the badges and points is that they're a constant dynamic growing process that you can run snippets in time. So you can run reports just on last month. You can have your students get excited about the fact that they got, let's say you have an ambassador badge. We were talking about ambassadorship, how exciting, and then when other students see what badges their friends have, they go, oh, wow, how do I get that one? Right. I want that ambassador badge. So it's just a way to increase engagement, reward students for great behavior, make it more fun. And then we have all sorts of system stuff built in with that metrics like Tyler was talking about to be able to just take behaviors like watching multimedia actually can, a certain amount of points are gathered and you can dictate how many, and then a certain amount of badges are given based on how many points before each.
Or let's dumb it down even further. Let's say you've got a new user of your multimedia system, your app or whatever that's engaging the kids at home the other 6 days a week, and they're new to it. They get points for logging in.
Yeah, just something dumb like that, because you're rewarding behavior. You're saying, hey, just the fact that you logged in at all tells me that you're attempting to make an effort in your learning experience.
So Chris was about to say we gave away a guitar, another guitar, and a recording Scarlett interface for recording with a microphone as the 3 prizes for the September 20th to November 1st, first ever contest, probably on planet Earth, because we coded it, released it, and then Los Rios did a contest with the new feature. And it was awesome. So we had about a 20% and we only announced it 3 days prior. So 20% of our students were active, and that's good for a 3-day blast and start. Now, but everybody saw on social media who won what, did some fun videos with, Space Odyssey 2001 and Michael getting his recording software handed to him. And so now everybody knows the thing that were on the walls and posted on social media is real. So I'm guessing the engagement's going to be double at least for next semester's contest. And then pretty soon, guys, you just never stop. You never, ever stop. It will become part of your culture, and it's just a given. Of course, I'm going to try.
So you know what they did when Tyler said 20%. What he means is the kid. There was it might even been a little higher than that, but there's about 1 out of 4 or something that was like super excited. They were like really trying to win this thing, and so it wasn't like everybody was trying to win. That's what he means. But what was really interesting too is that some of the teachers took more pride in it than others. And so then that starts to infect everyone too. So basically you lay a brick and soon you have a wall. we've done other contests in the past, but we never had this visual representation. We never had this point system. We never had an easy way like this to be able to prove it. And so this is the first time it was like, boom, here you go. Everybody daily can check up on where they're at. And we had mom and dads reaching out and saying all sorts of cool stuff.
Oh my gosh, the funniest one was, hey, is my daughter allowed to use the practice timer, which gives you points, in the Saturday rehearsals?
Yeah.
Because other kids are doing it. And I'm like, well, is rehearsal practice? I think it's a great idea. You know what I mean? Like, it was just really funny to see.
People are trying to game it.
The masses, the parts of the masses, the people that you can't tune in with all their minds at once because you have so many customers, all of a sudden it came alive as an entity, little bits of it, and it's only going to grow the more we do it. And so I can't wait to announce the next one. Now, advancement. That has a little advancement. So goals, graduating to higher levels, all of that. You can see how the leaderboard can come into play and help that and enhance that as well. But at Los Rios, we have program directors that are watching who is involved with one of our 3 levels of audition-based concert program. Well, those projects produce more practicing at home because they don't want to be the kid that shows up.
It's basically quality control, right? It's like you're controlling the quality of you're getting everybody. So basically by measuring it, students want to level up because they know they're being seen.
Right.
And so we actually have someone on staff that's job is to sort of measure QC and auditions and make sure that students are leveling up. So how are you doing that in your business? Are you measuring to make sure that students are leveling up? Do you have a quality control person that's making sure that people are actually getting better? And then how are you rewarding them for getting better? You know, do you have a reward system? Do you have a way for doing that?
Are your teachers, which your intake, your bottom boots on the ground person, is that teacher trained and is to be an ambassador to let a brand new student that might not be good enough yet for something? Are they reluctant and they just don't talk about it to that student for 4 months? Because that's bad. Now the student who's struggling to get better at something doesn't even know it exists. So like there's another aspect to it too. That measurement is those liaison, those ambassadors should be sprinkling hope and light on what is on the horizon if you never give up. And so those achievements and advancement points that you create in your school, if you don't have any, make the first one. Besides doing well in their lessons, make the first one and then make a second one. And then pretty soon at Los Rios, we had basically a 101/102. Now we have 101, 102 advanced. But in the very beginning, it was a very mishmash of intermediate to barely advanced players. And now we have 12-year-olds that are advanced because of the QC Chris was talking about.
And to be fair, Tyler, a lot of you in the learning business have curriculum you purchase and you have curriculum you buy. You have ways of advancing your learning. It's just how are you measuring it? Is everybody on the same page? You know, so what we're suggesting here is that to have true transformation, you have to have it systemized. And so that's the bottom line, and your team has to be on the same page. So there it is, transform. We got learning assignments, community engagement, and progress tracking, and reward system.
And you guys got double for your money on this episodes. We did 3 quickies and then a nice long coup de grace for the last part of the quadrant. And Chris, thank you so much for developing this and helping you and I developing this and getting it to people. And I'm telling you guys, if you can get this either podcast or our webinar to others you care about that are struggling, get it to them. Or maybe you learned enough from just talking to us. Go have the talk with them. Spread the wealth. This will help others, not just you. But again, thank you all for tuning in. And Chris, thank you. The Transformation Quadrant is on teacherzone.com along with our ebook. And this whole podcast is sponsored by teacherzone.com. So if you don't know who we are, go there. You'll get a quick look at what we're doing besides talking with you guys, which is what we love to do most. So Chris, until next episode, nice job, buddy.
Thank you, Tyler. Sayonara.
Bye, everybody.